Shalom Aleichem. Mishnah Yomi continues for 22nd of Nisan, Achron Shel Pesach. Hope everyone had a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. We are in chapter 7 of Pesachim, Mishnah 11, Yud Olef. Kol nechol b'shur godol. Any piece that is eaten in a fully grown shore, a fully grown ox, ya'achel b'gedi harach, may be eaten in the young gedi. Now, Gedi refers to the paschal lamb or goat. Gedi can mean the young, up to a year-old kid or lamb. So what does that have to do with the shore, with the fully grown ox? Is that, well, you need to have at least a kazayit of meat in your korban pesach per person. But what counts as meat? There are certain things we're going to see, like the cartilage and maybe the ears and the ear cartilage that maybe that doesn't count. So really, it's anything that's eaten in a fully grown ox, even if you'd have to boil it. The Bartner explains that some of these things you have to sort of cook for a long time to soften them up so they're edible. That counts in the korban pesach as edible material to get your kazait. But if it's something that's too hard or too difficult to cook in the fully grown ox, it does not count as meat in the korban pesach. The Mishnah continues, Roshik Nafaim v'hasahusim. This includes the cartilage at the top of the shoulders and other cartilage. These are considered edible meat, since in an ox they would boil it for a long time and they would go ahead and eat that as well. The Mishnah continues, a shover at the etzem b'pesach tahor. Someone breaks a bone in a tahor, a valid, kosher, uncontaminated korban pesach. He gets 40 lashes. That is a Isser deraisa. It's Asser from the Torah to do so. It's a pasuk etzem lo tishbro. Don't break a bone on it. Of all hamoter b'tahar, somebody leaves over meat. Motir is the verb of makes notar. He leaves leftovers. Veshover b'tameh, or breaks a bone in a contaminated korban pesach that cannot be eaten. And he's done something wrong. You're not supposed to do that, but he does not get malchus. And as I mentioned, one of the interesting things is the mitzvah not to break a bone actually causes notar to happen, because the marrow, the bones that have marrow, that would normally be considered edible. But since you can't break the bone, you can't access it, and it has to be burned with the notar. Great, on to Mishnah Yud Beis, Mishnah 12. Aver shiatzim miksaso. So the korban pesach can't leave Yerushalayim, but what if it stuck a leg out? You understand, while they're schlepping it down the street, they accidentally had a leg go out. What do? Chotech ad shemegia la'etzem. They cut into the flesh until they reach to the bone in the middle. Kolef ad shemegia la'perek. And they peel off the meat that's still inside Yerushalayim, until they get to the joint in between the bones, v'chotech, and they cut there. They don't break the bone. They don't break the bone right at the point where it went over the boundary line, but they go back to the joint between the bones, and they cut there the sinews and the connective tissue to separate the bones. They don't break them. Mikdash means other sacred offerings, like a shlamim or similar, a toda, something that can be, that's not a Pesach, where there's no mitzvah about breaking the bones. They could just cut it with a cleaver right down the line where it exited Yerushalayim. She'en bo mishum shvirat etzem. There's no mitzvah preventing breaking a bone there. So now the Mishnah defines, what do we mean inside Yerushalayim? There's certain areas that are sort of a gray area. What about inside the doorway? So in a doorway, mina agaf lifnim kilifnim. So from the agaf, now agaf means department in modern Hebrew. It means sort of like the wing of a building, or the space of building. So really, Bartner says it's the space where the door would be when it's closed. So now when that door is opened, that space is considered inside. So from this agaf, where the door would be when shut, and inward is inward, mina agaf lehutz, kilahutz. But outside of that is outside, considered outside of Yerushalayim. Holonot, and the windows, ove ahoma, and the width of the wall, when he's eating on top of the wall, kilifnim, those count as inside Yerushalayim or inside the Azara. Chazak Ruch and Chag Kasher V'Sameach.